Welcome to the Well-Rounded Retirement Podcast with John and Jim from CRIS Financial. In this podcast, we help you take a well-rounded approach to retirement planning so you can retire with complete certainty. If you're looking for proven and straightforward retirement advice, ranging from how to protect your assets to how to spend with confidence, this show is for you.
Hello and welcome to Well-Rounded Retirement with Jim Donewald and John Glowacz from CRIS Financial. Today, the guys are going to be starting a 3-part series. I'm excited to do this. 3 podcasts in a row covering the biggest mistakes retirees are making today with their retirement income planning. Gentlemen, what brought up this subject?
Our clients. What do you think?
Perfect. Well, yeah, I mean, people come to you all the time, I'm sure, and you see these mistakes over and over, and that's the beauty of it. You start working with them, and you can start, fixing some of these. So how many mistakes are we covering in these next 3 podcasts?
Yeah, so what we're going to go over are not having a plan, using the old rules that really just don't work anymore, not being wise to taxes, not accounting for inflation, not being diversified enough, and taking withdrawals from the wrong places, and then how do we use the current market conditions with bonds for income and things like that. So those are the 7 basics we're going to cover in this series.
All right, then what are we covering today?
So today we're going to cover not having a plan and what are the new rules of this current economy that we need to follow.
So you're going to need to ask yourself, basically, Jim, a few questions. And I got 4 questions here that I think we can expand on a little bit.
Shoot.
One is, what will you do if your retirement assets don't last you through the end of your life?
Well, that's going to be a problem. That's exactly the opposite of what we want for our clients. We're trying to show our clients how to spend with confidence, and I think that's a great question. And I don't have an answer for that because I'm counting on my assets lasting as long as I do.
And will you be able to begin working again if something should happen?
When we first started doing this, John, the economy was a lot better, and we got a lot of engineers where we live here in Katy, Texas, and there was easily for them to get new jobs. But right now, it's tough. The hiring environment just isn't that good these days. And so I don't know if they can go back to work even if they want to. We had quite a few clients that I've talked to recently that are 59, 60, 62, and they're just not getting those offers back. So that's a real problem.
Right. And the third thing, the question that you have to ask yourself is, will you have to move in with your adult children? I know that I personally don't want to move in with my adult children. I don't want to be a burden to them. And so I have to make sure that having a plan becomes more important as we move along, either as a pre-retiree or even as a retiree.
Isn't that the truth? I can't think of anything worse. I mean, I want my son to be there to be my son. I want to be his dad. I'm with you. I don't want to be the caregiver, nor do I want to be the recipient of that.
And the last question that you need to think about is, will you be able to provide for your housing, your utilities, your food, car payments, car insurance, health insurance, and unexpected medical bills? And one of the big ones is long-term care. And we talk a lot about long-term care, but that's a big one during retirement. And in today's volatile financial landscape, facing these challenges like this could really be a reality to most of us out there.
Well, I think you're right. I think you have to address it. I mean, I don't like to look at the stats, but the stats say 70% of us are going to need it in some capacity. So we might as well at least prepare for it. Hey, hopefully, I know it's not going to happen to you or me, but hopefully it doesn't happen to our clients either. But you better keep it on the horizon, because I've never seen anything devastate a nice retirement more than health issues. I think we can help our clients too just by avoiding some of these common mistakes. We teach a college course up here, and one of the things we always tell our clients the first night of school is, what do you want in your retirement? How are you going to get there? It's surprising how many blank stares we get back. They don't have a plan. They don't know what they want to do, and neither John and I are mind readers. We can't get you there. If you don't know where you want to go, how are you going to know if you get there? So a plan is real important. The other thing I highly recommend, I'm married, make sure that your plan and your wife's plan or your significant other is the same. If all one of us wants to do is travel and the other one wants to stay home all the time, that's going to be an issue. So getting a plan together and making sure you're on the same page is real important. The easier part is now trying to figure out kind of where the money's going to come from to do that. And we find that, I kid a lot, but we work with a lot of these engineers up here, and they got spreadsheets. They've got a plan. They know where the money's coming from. They know where it's at. And I think that's really important. And most of us don't. Even myself, who's a pretty good record keeper, I need some work on figuring out what's going to happen here, where these funds are going to come from.
And a lot of people don't have a lot of these expenses that in their mind. They don't write it down, and they don't really see all the things that could happen when they retire, especially with their annual expenses. Eric, we have a white paper on our website on how to set an annual expense, because there's a lot of different things that go into it, like housing, transportation, fuel, utilities, food, medical, prescription insurance, property and auto and health insurance, clothing donations, entertainment, hobbies. I mean, it's a ton of stuff. And you get into retirement and you just start spending like you were still working. You could run out of your assets fairly quick, because compounding or reverse dollar cost averaging goes fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think people, and they don't get it. Like I say, to really look at it, even I'm always amazed, how much we spend sometimes with it without being aware of it. The next part, is life expectancy. I always kid with my clients. You tell me when you're going to pass away, I'll put together the perfect plan. We don't know when that is. So, whether it's a short life, long life, we want to get you into the next life. I mean, that's kind of it. We want to help our clients through the retirement process. One good sign is, my parents both lived to be 90. Okay, well, give you some indication. Still not, we still don't know. Or my parents only lived to be 75. Okay, well, maybe we can spend more money earlier in life, but we certainly need to keep this into account. And like our first question, we'd rather have a little left over at the end than run out too soon.
Well, I know, because there's no do-overs at this point in time. But one of the key factors that most of us don't even really think about, and that's inflation. So maybe you can expand on inflation a little bit.
Well, it's hard because, medical inflation and regular inflation are two different things. They'll tell you that inflation's under check, but medical inflation's through the roof, and that's why, we've put a lot more emphasis on helping people try to protect some of their assets from a wellness event, we call it, whether it's a stay in the hospital, whatever. Because inflation is just eroding away our purchasing power, and the fact that we just pumped out another $2 trillion in aid these days, that's not going to help the savers. That's who gets hurt the most in this. Is the money just sitting in the bank is worth less. So we want to be safe, but we need to be productive. And inflation is brutal, but we need to account for it.
All right. One of the things that you guys actually said was, trying to estimate those, your annual expenses and home, auto maintenance, travel, holidays, things like that. I think a lot of people think, well, if I live longer, I'm going to travel less as I get older, which is true. Mobility goes down a little bit, so on and so forth. And I think a lot of people think, well, as I save money in certain areas, I can spend more in other areas. But you said it best when you said, people are living longer, and those healthcare costs are going to far outweigh what you're going to save in not traveling as much. I mean, those are going to obliterate what you thought you might be able to spend in a different direction. So how does somebody live a lifestyle that they want to live in retirement without that fear of living too long or having so many medical bills as they approach 85, 90, 95 years old that they just, they kind of freeze up and think, I've got to have this for later. How can you maintain that lifestyle that you want?
Well, I know that you possibly just don't know, but we kind of break our retirement years into three different categories. We have the go-go years, the slow-go years, and then the no-go years. And the majority of our assets are going to be spent during the go-go years and the slow-go years. Because once we get to a point of the no-go years, we're not going to be spending as much money. And if we are spending money, it's usually long-term care, medical events, things of that nature. And so longevity becomes a big issue during retirement. There's a lot of costs that are involved that that we tried to get you to think about earlier in this segment about how to put together a plan. And one of the questions that you need to keep asking yourself, and to go into more depth in the questions, is, are you going to be living in the same home? Is the home paid off? Is it in good repair? Can you expect to stay in good repair? What about your utilities? I mean, there's a lot of different variables that are going into this.
Yeah, part of our planning when we sit down with people is it's nothing new. We call it gap planning. Where are the holes in your plan? So maybe I've retired and I've got a severance package, and that's going to take care of the next year or so. And then the year after that, Social Security is going to kick in, and then we're going to start traveling. And it's just a matter of kind of laying this out. And that's why I say the plan is so important. What do you want to do? If there's a lot of money left over, that's never an issue. But how are we going to make sure that we can fulfill the obligations that we've already made, and then be prepared as best as we can for the stuff that we can't see coming? And that's, like John said, so the more honest you are with yourself as to what your actual expenses and what your actual goals are. I feel very lucky down here. I'm constantly encouraging our clients to spend more money. They're very conservative by nature, and it's kind of funny that they don't feel like they can let go. They've been in that working mode for so long. It's a tough transition. Once the paychecks stop coming in, it's hard to relax. And kind of the purpose here and the goal of our firm is to help people feel comfortable and good about their decisions and know that they're good, solid decisions.
And that's one of the issues of creating your own personal pension plan becomes even more important about being able to spend your money with confidence without having to worry about where those gaps are and whether or not all of the things that we talked about on your list of expenses can be met no matter what happens in the market.
Mm-hmm. Guys, that actually brings me right back to that last podcast you did on annuities. And so, audience, if you haven't heard that one, they answered a ton of questions. But now I've got another one that I just thought about. What happens to an annuity if you go into a long-term care facility?
Yeah, well, it'll keep paying you. Many of them these days have what's called an income doubler, where they'll actually double whatever they've been paying you for some amount of time, 3-5 years, something along those lines. So they've become very user-friendly. And and like we're always talking about, it's I don't like to get too hung up on whether it's an annuity or an asset-based long-term care policy, but we want to make sure that we're using the right vehicle to solve the problem. Because so many people, like I said, when we talked earlier, and they said, I don't like these. Well, why don't you like them? And typically, what we find is somebody they're using a hammer when they need a screwdriver. It's just that simple. Mm-hmm. So we try to use hammers where you need hammers and screwdrivers where you need screwdrivers, and we don't really care what it's called, because to me that's how you solve the situation. You make sure you get the best vehicle for that particular situation, and you kind of segment your portfolio up so that you don't have all your eggs in one basket.
Well, the annuity, the question that you were asking, Eric, is that. The safety element that comes into play is that they're lawsuit proof, they're probate proof, they're government proof, they're Medicaid spend down proof. There's a lot of different protections that are built into a fixed and a fixed indexed annuity. You don't have that same protection with the variable annuity or the immediate annuity, but those provisions are built into these contracts.
Gotcha. All right. And I know one of the things you guys have spoken about before on previous podcasts is the fact that you guys really take a close look at everything that your clients have and they're doing and their plans so that you can help maximize all of their benefits from their retirement accounts and maybe Social Security. How do you do that with your clients?
Yeah, just like I said, what's better than accomplishing 2 or 3 tasks with the same money if we can? So it's about leveraging, it's about positioning, it's about assessing the client's risk. So many times we can position the client's money that takes care of the immediate need, and then should something else happen, say long-term care or something like that, it can be altered or segued into accommodating for that as well. And that's the best of both worlds. So we have this money set aside that we hope to enjoy traveling the world. But if that's not the way it works out, we're still in good shape.
Got it. All right. I know we need to move on here to mistake number 2. What is that?
Rules to the old economy and rules in a new economy. So we're going to talk about withdrawal methods, the 4% rule, which was calculated in a different area. And I like to listen to Jim's analogy on this.
Yeah, we love this. The 4% rule is, I think it was back in 1994, William Benjamin came up with this. And it's basically a Monte Carlo simulation he did on all these portfolios to figure out what he could pull out and still maintain some assets. So they were trying to figure this out for about 24, 25 years, the income would last. Back then, the stock market, he was using about a 60-40 split of stocks to bonds, 60% in stocks, equities, and he figured they were average about 8.5%. I could probably still live with that today. But the bond section, or 40% of that, he was guessing about 6.5%. Do you know what bonds are paying today, Eric?
Yeah, not that.
That's right. So it's kind of turned that equation on its ear. It just doesn't work. So Morningstar did it, I want to say back in 2013, and they said, no, the 4% rule is really the 2.9% rule. And then I think Wall Street Journal did an article on it, and they said, no, it's really the 1.9%. They don't know. In this new environment, the way this economy is, the markets, I should say, is so volatile, it's very hard to pull a consistent paycheck out of a moving target. And that's what we try to get our clients away from. It's just not, market is great for growth. I love the market, but you can't time it. I mean, if I need $30,000 right when that, let's say we go back to February, March of this year, that would be a bad time to take it out of the market. So we try to make sure that we're set up so that's not the case.
Well, the market was never really designed to provide a paycheck. There are other instruments that are geared more around income planning than utilizing the market, because we don't know what the market's going to do. And so we have to look for downside protection, but we also have to have the ability to have the bounce back as well. And so there's some tools that are available that can ensure that we don't miss the bounce back when the downside happens.
Yeah, if you follow the old rules here, I mean, and everyone used to think too, I'm going to take out 4% and all my principal is going to be there. That rule never said that. That rule said if you take out 4%, your portfolio should last 25 years. That doesn't mean if you had $1 million, you're going to pull 4% out and 25 years later, you're still going to have $1 million. So people need to think through that. I think people get confused sometimes as how much money it takes to generate a decent income. And so we just want to be realistic. And we always say, too, when we do our talks, nobody lives on 4%. I don't care if it's you, me, you live on $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, whether that's 2% of your portfolio or 15%. Those are the kind of funds that you need to have. When nobody lives on this 4%, it's easy to speak about it like that, but that's not how the average person lives.
I think a lot of us have short-term memory as well, too. I mean, because we forget about what happened in 2008, and we even forget about what happened in February and March of this year in 2020 when the market dipped 34%. Now, it's since bounced back, but we have to do something and prepare ourselves in the event that should happen again. But everybody's forgetting what happened, and they're riding this wave right now, and that really scares me for the long term.
Yeah, I think, like you said, John, how quick to forget. I'm getting nightmare calls. In February, everyone's freaking out, and then everything's great. I'm just amazed. I know it's partly is that greed factor. We all like to make money. I don't have any problem with that. But once again, we want to make sure that you've got plenty of other money that is not affected by these markets, something non-correlated to the market that can help. So we're big believers in separating, growth from payday. If we need this money to live on, especially if we're new in retirement or just getting in there, we want to make sure that you've got funds that we know where these funds are coming from for the next 5 years or something like that. So we can at least have it earmarked as what's going to happen. If the market does great, not a problem. If the market doesn't do so good, we're covered.
Well, I remember what happened on March 16th, just a few months ago, and that was that the market dropped at a rapid rate. So at 8 o'clock that morning, if you had $500,000 and you were expecting $20,000 a year in income based on that 4% rule, so at the end, at 5 o'clock, the market was down $64,000.
That hurts.
That hurts. And with that, at $20,000 a year, you lost 3 years of income right there on just that one drop.
Yeah, nobody wants to think about that, including me. That hurts.
Yeah, well, just think about the 30-day period when that total ended up being $435,000 is what you had left.
Yeah.
And it was 7 years of income that you lost.
Yeah, thank God it came back. But like I say, we're not always going to get that lucky. So that's the beauty of it. And yet, though, people still are, hanging out there going, well, I don't want to miss it.
Right. So how do you do that, and how do you prepare yourself? And there's a book out by a guy named Tom Hegman, I believe his name is, and it's called Paychecks and Playchecks. And you need to separate your paychecks and your playchecks. And so that basically means taking some of your assets and moving them to the side so that whatever happens in the market, it doesn't kill the lifestyle that you built up for your retirement and all the plans that you had. And so we want to make sure that all of our bills are paid and all our expenses are paid. And we have our paychecks that we get every single month from either our personal pension plan or Social Security or all the different ways that we have income distributions coming into our account. And then we have our playchecks where we travel and we do our hobbies and we do all the things that we want to do with the assets and that we have that we haven't lost in the market without fear. So we're going to spend our money with a little bit more confidence than what we normally do.
All right, guys, this has been fantastic. We're getting a little low on time. I know that this is part one of a 3-part series. Can you give us just a little hint on what's going to come in the next podcast?
Boy, you're not going to want to miss it.
Yeah, the next one's going to be exciting, Eric, because we're going to talk about everybody's favorite subject, and that's taxes.
Woohoo! Taxes? Is that it? The whole podcast about taxes?
And inflation.
Does it get any better?
It doesn't get any better. Here's the thing, guys. This is timely information for everybody listening. And we joke about, oh boy, yay, we get to talk about taxes. But really, I am excited about it because we've got an election coming up. And you never know, right? Somebody new gets in, they want to change everything. Somebody old stays in, he still wants to change everything. So we don't know what's coming, but it's incredibly important to know what you could be facing in retirement, pre-retirement, what you can do now. So I am really looking forward to it. You guys always bring great information. Thank you so much for your time today and all the great information you brought today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Hey, you betcha. And of course, the last thank you goes to the listening audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Well-Rounded Retirement Podcast with Jim Donewald and John Glowacz. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Jim and John come out with a podcast about taxes and nothing but taxes, it'll show up directly on your listening device. And it'll make it much easier to share that fun podcast about taxes with your friends and family. We joke, but literally, it's going to be great information. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at CRIS Financial, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Well-Rounded Retirement Podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of CRIS Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.